Show is in English, right?
Hello there, welcome along to Good Morning Uganda Extra. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko, and we are definitely here to continue having conversations that are very much impactful to you, the viewers, as much. And by the look of things, this time around, we're going to be focused and centered around persons with disability. But this time around, we'll be having these conversations rotating around the children with disability. And when we talk disabilities or persons with disability, just recently, the Day for Persons with Disability was celebrated. And the element of the same is to ensure that there is need for inclusivity in decision making, policies that are being put in place or being decided so that they can also align with the persons with disability. Now, the conversation we have today is, like I mentioned, looking at children with disability. And speaking of children with disability, we're looking at inclusive educations for children with disabilities. The catchword here is inclusive and education, the two catchwords, inclusive and education. How do we include the children with disability into the element of education? And that is where our conversations are going to be. You can as well feel free to share your own opinions here on our WhatsApp number, and then see how we can definitely be more impactful to you with the piece of information we are yet to receive this morning. Now, joining me on set to have this impactful conversation, or this changing conversation, or mind-blowing conversation rotating around mindset change towards the reception we give to children with disability and how we treat them. I do have the Executive Director of the Mukisa Humanity and Inclusion Foundation, and this is none other than Melanie Mataga. A very good morning, Melanie, and many thanks for joining us.
Good morning. I'm privileged to be here. My name is Melanie Mataga, and I'm the Executive Director, Mukisa Humanity and Inclusion Foundation. Yes.
All right, and also a brief background of you as Melanie and the foundation as well, for the viewers to pretty much understand why you are here this morning.
Melanie Mataga, for purposes of people with visual impairment, is a woman with albinism, age 26, and I have worked with people with disabilities the last 8 years. I've represented persons with disabilities at the national level, and yeah, I'm passionate about disability and inclusion. And about Mukisa Humanity and Inclusion Foundation, this is a non-profit organization that is aimed at being the umbrella organization of children and youth with disabilities in Uganda. And us as a foundation work under 3 programs: education, health, and livelihood programs.
Okay.
Yes, and under our education program, we support children with disabilities and youth with disabilities attain meaningful education alongside any other persons. And under our health programs, we extend health services to people with disabilities in the different communities. We have different communities around the country, and we keep on visiting these communities, extend free health services to them. And in our livelihood programs, we train people with disabilities, especially women and young girls with disabilities, on hands-on skills. Let's say liquid soap making, bar soap making, Vaseline making, among others. Yes, so that's the brief about the foundation.
Melanie, in your introduction, you've mentioned something to do with visual impairment.
Yes.
I have to believe this is part of the examples of disabilities that we are definitely here to discuss about.
Yes, please.
If you can as well break down for the viewers the types of disabilities that we have, or how someone can easily identify a person with disabilities.
Disability is really broad,
Okay.
but to break down, when I talk about people with visual impairment, there are different types of visual impairment. I am personally visually impaired. That's why I put on glasses.
Yes.
Anyone that has a problem to do with sight is visually impaired, but we are visually impaired differently. Some of us are long-sighted. Long-sighted, I mean, you'll not be able to see something that is far.
Okay.
So people mistake, people always misinterpret short-sightedness for long-sightedness. Being long-sighted, you'll not be able to see something that is far, and being short-sighted, you'll not be able to see something that is near.
Okay.
And then there are people that have that are totally blind. We call them totally blind. These cannot see at all. Yes, so that's also another type of visual impairment. And then now we have people that have hearing impairment, and it's also different. There are people that totally have hearing loss, and then there are people that have a hard of hearing. You'll only have to shout for someone to understand what you're saying. So that's a hard of hearing. And then there are people with physical disabilities, someone that has, let's say, someone that has a problem with their hand, someone that has a problem with their limbs, their feet, someone that is in a wheelchair, someone that uses crutches. All those are types of physical disabilities. And then we have albinism. Yeah, albinism is a condition whereby someone is born and they do not have the melanin pigment that would enable their skin to look darker. So their skin is white, I should say.
Okay. All right. As we continue to have these conversations, as a foundation, what are some of those projects that you've put in place, and how impactful have they been, especially for the children with disability?
When we went to our communities, just like I mentioned earlier, we have different groups in the communities, and we extend these services to these groups. So what we do is we find the need in the community. We have an interaction with the people in the community because they know best how they feel and they know best how we can support them. So as we have this interaction, it helps us understand exactly what they need. And through our interaction, most of our visits were extension of health camps, and this is when we got to know how best we can continuously support our people. Most of our people are not going to school. They did not have access to quality education. And those that have access to education, it's really of a poor standard.
Okay.
Yes, so we looked at having schools that we could partner with as a foundation to support these children. And last year we had about 73 children in school, both primary and secondary level. And yes, we support them in school. For parents that do not afford school fees, we look at a way of supporting them too. That's how we introduced the livelihood program in our system, because we don't look at supporting them with school and also supporting them with requirements. So we empower them to be in position to support their children too. And it has been sustainable.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, also let's get broader into understanding inclusive education. As much as we preach for inclusivity, now you look at inclusive education, what is it all about? And what are the core objectives of the same, and what does it entail, if we are to break it down for the viewers so as to understand why we have this kind of conversation today?
Okay. Inclusive education, when I discuss inclusive education, I discuss it as a form of an education system that would allow a child with a disability or impairment or let's say anything that makes them disadvantaged access education alongside any other child. Yes, an environment that would give a child that is less privileged to access the same systems that any other person can access. Okay. So in this case, inclusive education, I would define it as a form of education that would allow equal access to standard education system for both children with disabilities and those without disabilities, but in the same space.
Okay.
Yes.
Melanie, as we look at the fact that there is a need of education, of inclusive education, which will entail having persons with disabilities on board as well in the education system, looking into what people need to have to support persons with disability of any sort. What are some of those requirements of the children with disability? Because per se, an individual, or let's say a non-government organization may be coming on board to support your cause or support any other foundation that is also basically driving the same conversation of inclusive education. What are those requirements that the children need as their basics at the starting point as they get into education?
First and foremost, what we do as a foundation, we sensitize their parents about the need for them to go to school, because it's been tricky for these children and their parents to accept that they can fit in any school environment. And then secondly, we sensitize the teachers in the identified schools, and we help the children in the identified schools understand how they need to support the children with disabilities before we incorporate them in the system. So for children with disabilities, as we're moving in our communities, we go to find, yes, one of the reasons as to why they're not in school, alongside poverty, I mean their parents not being in position to pay for their school fees, and the negative attitude that they have towards society. I mean, they feel inferior in society, and they think they will not fit in the normal education system, but still they do not have assistive devices that support them with their education. Let's say a person with visual impairment would need a Perkins Braille machine to write, because they have a special print that they read, and this is called Braille, or a slate and stylus, but they wouldn't afford it. That means this person is not going to go to school because they wouldn't afford to buy a Braille machine. And then a person with a physical disability who don't afford to crawl to class, so they would prefer to stay home other than going to class crawling. So if they had a wheelchair, it would enable them go to class and compete effectively. A person with hearing impairment, remember sign language interpreters are really, really expensive to accommodate and pay, and they will not be there all the time. Let's say these children are in different classes. So if this child got hearing aids, it would really be helpful for them to study alongside any other child. So basically, a person with albinism, my condition, albinism comes with a problem that it generally has a problem with sight. It comes with a sight problem. So we always need reading glasses to be able to compete effectively with the other children. So, and then we thought of the need to get these devices together, and that's the best way we would support these children with disabilities get into school. Alongside any other barriers, these devices are really expensive for them to afford, but they would really love to be in school.
Yes. Let's also put it in into another sensitive part here. Looking at the girl child, who is also a child with disability at the time, how special are they in such times, and how do you help them get through the different stages of adolescence, if I may say?
We have closely worked with girl children, and we have always incorporated them in at the front line of our activities, because they're at a more disadvantaged situation than the boy children. most of the children with disabilities have been taken advantage of, and that's why we always want to move them away from their communities and help them vibe with people from different communities so they know how best they can support themselves even without us. So we sensitize them about their rights, and we also sensitize them about sexual and reproductive health. So basically, just like I said, we empower them before we bring them to the outside community. So by the time they get here, they know they have to do this in order to be successful. And we always, we have people with disabilities that we work with because the foundation has a big team.
Okay.
We have both people with disabilities and those without disabilities. So when they look at us out there in their communities, trying to talk to them, I'm sure they get empowered.
Okay.
They'll be like, yes, I have a disability, but I'm sure I can be like Melanie.
Okay.
And, yes.
Let's talk, you know, the reception into the community. Now, as a foundation, you've actually safeguarded them from all sorts of negative energy and the like. The element of discrimination, especially around persons with disability, now the children with disability, and the reason that's why we always have inclusive conversations is because of that element, which is ideally there. How do you, help build, the esteem of these particular children as they go through such times, and have they faced as much discrimination in most of the areas they go to, especially school, and then when they are trying to associate with their fellows? How do you help them build their esteem?
Just to take you back a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Personally, about myself.
Okay.
As a child, I think the love and support that I got from my family and the people that were closest to me helped boost my esteem.
Okay.
Yes, so in most cases, society needs to understand if the closest people to a person with disabilities embrace her or him, that's a starting point for them, for their esteem building.
Okay.
So we always sensitize the people that are closest to these people, their parents, their siblings first. So when these people are given the love that they deserve at home, they will not they will not so much pay attention to the negative comments from society. And when society, that's what society wants. When society believes the negative comments or negativity has no impact on you, they will not do it. But when it has an impact on you, they will continuously do it. So it's about the people that are closest to them, making them feel loved, making them feel special and important. It helps them out there. Yes, so it begins at home.
Okay,
yes.
And let's also get into some of the campaigns that have actually been towards or geared towards, inclusive education as a foundation. What are some of those campaigns that have been that have actually been in place, and then what are the campaigns that you're looking forward to establishing to ensure inclusive education?
First and foremost, we did school visits. We did sensitization. We sensitize people about disability and inclusion. And we sensitize them about people with disabilities, especially children and youths, being at the forefront, especially in decision-making processes. We sensitize them about being role models in their communities. So the sensitization bit has helped us a lot in that children and communities have learned to embrace people with disabilities. So as we're moving towards the campaign for inclusive education, that was helpful in that we have already gotten children with disabilities in school already, and at least we've had a positive response from school, and these children have gotten the necessary support that they want. So we want to officiate the campaign this year and then go ahead with it in 2024.
How have people received these campaigns? And looking at the outreaches you've made in communities where we have persons with disabilities who are also supportive, and then the children with disabilities, how have people been able to support you on this cause of the campaigns?
People have really embraced this campaign. I'm happy we've shared about this campaign with a couple of non-government organizations, private companies, government agencies, let's say international agencies too. Yes, they have been able to support us, especially the media, UBC. UBC has been here with us from the start of the campaign. And yeah, I've got a very, very good response from the different organizations. Mulia Foundation. Mulia Foundation is an organization that supports some children at Salama School for the Blind. They actually, if you remember the fire outbreak that happened last year, and destroyed 11 children with disabilities. So we built a monument in remembrance of these children and also launched a digital library at the School for the Blind in Salama. So Mulia Foundation has been supportive. Herona Hospital has been supportive, because remember, before we give these children assistive devices, we do assessment first.
Okay.
We don't just wake up one morning and say, okay, you have a hearing loss, so we are going to give you hearing aids. You need to be assessed. You need to go through audiograms so we understand what level of hearing, what's your level of hearing, what was the cause of your hearing loss, why do you have, let's say, a hard of hearing, so they get to know the exact hearing aids that work for you. Let's say you need reading glasses, you still need to go through eye screening. So Herona Hospital has been supportive with that. And then, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people have been here with us.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And of course, as we're looking into inclusive education for children with disability, I believe we've had, if you are a viewer, let's say, you've at least had a chat with a person with disability, you do have a friend with disability, or you do have a friend who has a child with disability, or you have a relative with a child with disability. These are foundations that are in place. This specific foundation is always giving room or a voice to help, lift the children with disability. But one of the things I've actually picked out from the SEM is how much love do you show to these particular children, for example, if you're the parent or if you are the guardian? Because as a society, we need to create room to build the esteem of these children right from the time they start going into, to associate with the fellows, or whether they are in school, because this alone will help them go through any sort of discrimination that may come at, their way. Either way, in places of work, or whether they're still in school and the like, or even in social gatherings as such. But when we do return, we need to have conversations rotating around how much or how broad can we have this inclusive education with children with disabilities as well. And then also looking at how the NGOs have been of huge support to the same cause. How have the private sector players been able to support? Has the government also jumped onto the hurdle to ensure that it supports these foundations to see that children with disabilities are included in the education sector? The idea is seeing how inclusive it can get for the children with disability. You're still watching UBC Good Morning Uganda Extra, so stick around with us. After the break, we continue with more conversations.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
A new dawn on Behind the Headlines with me, Timothy Nyangweso. Every Wednesday, live in our studios in the heart of Kampala. We have conversations that have analysis, explanation, but not every truth is fact, and not every fact is truth. Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster.
All on your public broadcaster. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Well, the Executive Director for Mukisa Humanity and Inclusion Foundation is with us here in studio. That is Melanie Mataga, who is with us this morning. The conversations are really looking at inclusive education for the persons with disability. And well, it does look like a sensitive conversation or sensitive topic. Why so? Because we tend to at times limit the potentials of children with disability by discriminating them in a way that is not direct but rather indirect. In one, for example, the policy makers, in the policies that are being made, and then two, in schools, at times how school arrangements are. You realize some schools are not accommodative of the persons with disability. And then also looking at places, or let's say children, fun, let's say children adventure places, or places where children normally go for leisure. You get to realize that we've had some cases where persons or children with disability are highly discriminated simply because some parents do not want their children to associate with these special needs kind of people. So that kind of discrimination is something that we always are trying to end as a country. We are trying to end it in, trying to embed it in inclusivity. How do we include them in the decisions we make? How do we include them in, let's say, conversations? How do we include them while we are interacting with them? This and much more is what we mean by inclusion. But as of today, our emphasis and our efforts are highly directed towards including children with disability into the education space, or inclusive education for the children with disability. I'm still with my guest, and we are having these conversations going deeper and deeper. Now, Melanie, by the look of things as well, if you're to look at how we can ensure children with disability are included in the broad education system, how can we do this? I want us to approach this, first of all, from the individual basis, before we go into other stakeholders. How can we approach this particular issue to see that the children with disability are included in the education system, broadly? Okay.
One is I would advocate for reasonable accommodation in schools. When I talk about reasonable accommodation, I'll talk about having ramps in schools to accommodate children with physical disabilities that use wheelchairs or crutches to go to class. And then I would also advocate for sensitization of the staff in schools about how best to handle different disability types, because disability types are handled differently. Let's say there's a child with a visual impairment. This child would need to sit in front of the class, even if they're putting on reading glasses. So if a teacher does not know this, they'll take it for granted, and we've got those comments in most of the places we went, and also got comments whereby a teacher insulted the child and called her names because of her vision. So we need to make to create a safe space, an environment whereby by the time these children are put in these schools, they really can best fit in them.
Okay.
And then we need to get these assistive devices to the schools that would well accommodate children with disabilities. So we do not have to go into situations whereby children are in school, but they cannot study because they do not have these devices. Yes, and then, yeah, I think personally that's what I would think.
Okay, now let's take it to the private sector. Are they doing enough? You know, with the kind of economy we're in today as a country, you do realize the private sector has a bigger portion of it. So having them included in this space to uplift the rights of children with disability, it would be something highly appreciated and welcomed. Have they done enough? And if so, if not, what should be done to invite them into the space?
The private sector has tried to address the need for inclusive education.
Okay.
And we have had some of them want to support us through this cause. And yeah, not a lot has been done, but just like I mentioned, we are just beginning. It's just the beginning. So the main challenges that I talked about are the challenges that we need to address as we begin this campaign. But yes, we have had, we've always had the symposium for inclusive education, and this has been organized by the Ministry of Education. It has always been organized by the Ministry of Education, and we've still been brainstorming about how to go about the challenges that come with inclusive education. I mean, the challenges that come with children with disabilities being included in the normal education system. And yeah, we've had a lot of private sector organizations join the discussion. So yeah, I'm sure they'll always be happy to come together with us and support us.
Let's also look at the government here. How much more support would foundations like yours need from the government to ensure that we have inclusive education for children with disability?
I think the government needs to come together with us to address this cause. I mean, to address the need for inclusive education for children with disabilities being included in the broad education system. They can also support us in finding these assistive devices that would support children with disabilities. Yeah, government has always been supportive towards education for children with disabilities, because there are a couple of schools that support children with disabilities, especially schools for the blind, deaf. And recently, we were with the Minister of Education and Sports at the Salama School for the Blind. But yes, these are schools that accommodate these children with disabilities, but there is a need for inclusive education. Having these children not confined in the same space as them, let's say school for the blind, deaf, let's look at having these children enjoy the same spaces with any other children with disabilities.
Okay.
Yes.
Looking forward, this week we have a fundraising dinner that you did mention about. Also, what is this dinner meant to achieve? And then what is it summing up have we been having activations since the start of the year, and what does the dinner, who are the people we expect at this dinner?
Yes, we've been having this discussion ongoing since the beginning of the year. Just like I mentioned, we've had children with disabilities get in school already, and we have, I do not know if I mentioned earlier, we have, to begin with, we're going to have a couple of schools. We're going to call them the Mukisa Inclusive Schools.
Okay.
But as per now, we have a primary school in Jinja that accommodates children with disabilities. This is Mukisa Nursery and Primary School. And yeah, for the fundraising dinner is happening on the 10th of December. That's this Sunday at Hotel Africana. And whatever proceeds we get from the fundraising dinner go towards assistive devices for children with disabilities.
Okay.
Yes.
So we do expect private sector players, government, and NGOs here, right?
Yes, we do. We expect international agencies, NGOs, of course, the partners we've been working with throughout this campaign. We expect schools. We expect parents to children with disabilities. We expect people with disabilities themselves. We expect representatives to people with disabilities, especially at the national levels, in government. Yes, we expect the Ministry of Education and Sports. Yes, we have a lot of, we have a very, very wide guest list, and we still want guests, we still want people to come on board. And this is just going to be the inauguration of the campaign, basically the launch of the campaign, and then we shall begin the serious discussion on how to see these children in school beginning 2024.
I don't know, I forgot to ask you this. How do you deal with children with disabilities? Now, for you as the foundation, we're looking at, let's say, a child, even in kindergarten, most of the children really need attention. Now, I'm picturing a child with disabilities. How do you deal with them? Which kind of attention is supposed to be given to these particular ones? Because as much as we continue to look at inclusive education, we also have lots of daycare, schools that are coming up, kindergartens, and some of the teachers who go through, early childhood development as a course at the institution of learning are normally given basics of dealing with children. So there is nothing as much as dealing. It is only a few who are special, who have actually studied about children with special needs, and they know what to do. But not all schools are employing this particular children. Now, if we have a school owner out there who is having this kind of children, how do you deal with them? When you're to look at the stages, let's say from 4 to 5, 7 to 8 years, how do you deal with these particular children? Okay.
Just like I mentioned earlier, if a child with disability would really be successful or easily accepted into society, it begins with the system at home or the people that are closest to them.
How much love do you show them?
So what we do is we sensitize these people. When we go to these communities, we sensitize them, especially right from family basis. So me as a mom of a child with a visual impairment, if I get this sensitization and I'm taking my daughter to kindergarten, I'll definitely have to let the school administration know my daughter needs to sit at the front. Because, especially with lower education, children need to be scattered because most of them are coming from home. So you will not get access to all these institutions that support these children because they're scattered all over the space. So, but if you sensitize their parents during your visits to these communities, the parents will sensitize the school, will help the school know how best they can support the child.
Okay.
Yes.
Looking at the children themselves now, you as a foundation you've looked at them, they share and interact a lot with you people who take care of them. What are some of those issues they've actually been able to report that are quite common as they are associating with their fellows, especially those who are not disabled?
Okay. I need to give an example.
Sure.
A person with albinism has a problem with heat, a general problem with heat, because our skins are really so weak to handle too much heat. And then let's say I am at school,
Okay.
and then we need to line up to get food. But a child without albinism that does not understand my condition will let me stand behind in the line to wait for food until I get food. But if a child is sensitized about my condition and how much it affects me, they will always see it as a priority for me to move in front and get food. So we've had these problems. That's why at the beginning of everything I mentioned, we sensitize the teachers and the children on how best to support these children. If I cannot see something at the blackboard and we need to copy information from the blackboard, and I'll have to copy it from a book right next to me, my neighbor's book, how would it make them feel? So if they understood I have a problem with vision, they would actually make it a priority to understand if what I've written is exactly what is on the blackboard. Yes. So
it's more about the element of sharing. It becomes very difficult when it comes to the other children, accepting them. So again, to the viewers out there, if you're a parent, it is high time you would as well welcome, you know, friends, especially if your child has friends with, you know, a child who has any form of disability as well. How you welcome them to you clearly shows that you're breeding a spirit of inclusivity amongst or into your child, and also breeding a society that will be so much welcoming to a child with disability, because being born with disability doesn't mean you wanted to be born with it. At times you have to live with it and appreciate the fact that you're already with it. And there are also those who have actually been unfortunate to receive the disability as they are maturing up, or as they are growing up, either through health complications or through accidents, you can name it. But how we associate with them gives them the power to feel appreciated in society, so that as well, it also helps to boost their esteem, so as to feel that they are included in any decision that is actually being made. Melanie, as we are winding up with the conversation this morning, what would be your recommendations as we are looking at the broader picture of inclusive education? What would be your recommendations to the viewers this morning?
First and foremost, I would recommend viewers that would, one, want to support the campaign for inclusive education, be part of the fundraising dinner. When I talk about the fundraising dinner, our guests are buying tickets to the dinner. They're buying tickets to the dinner, but we are looking at forms of fundraising. There are going to be assistive devices already that someone can buy for a child with a disability. There's going to be auctioning of art pieces, and there's going to be pledges, and then would also accept if someone would buy assistive devices or would come with assistive devices and donate them as physical assistive devices. Yes, so I would really call upon the general public to be part of us, and it's not going to end with the fundraising dinner. We're going to have to get into the deeper conversation with a couple of private companies, individuals, government officials, the government itself. So I would be happy if they welcome the cause. And then, yes, I would advise parents to children with disabilities to also contact us so that we see how to support these children with school starting 2024. I would really appreciate if they do contact us, so we start with this process as soon as possible.
Okay, yes. And speaking of contacting you, let's talk about how anyone watching from here, how they can reach out to you. Where are you located, or where are the headquarters? And also the phone numbers. Do you have any social media reach? How can they reach out to you in case they need support or in case they need collaborations as well?
Okay. Our offices in Kampala are located behind Ham Towers. This is Wandegeya, opposite Makerere Hospital Gate.
Okay.
There's a building with the word Furaha on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then in Jinja, we're located on plot 18, Ambali Road, Southern Division.
Mm-hmm.
Not far from the Nile. Not far from the Nile. Actually, Owen Falls Dam, Amber Court.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
So they can reach us. They can actually visit our offices.
Mm-hmm.
Or reach us out by email. That is mukisa.hif@gmail.com.
Okay.
And then our website, they can actually follow what we do through our website, that is mukisahif.org. And they can reach us out on our telephone numbers, 0783 91 11 14 or 0740 55 04 95.
And the numbers are on the screen there for those who want to reach out to the team.
Yes.
Those are the numbers.
Yeah, assessment is already ongoing for
Okay.
children with disabilities, and some of them have already started receiving their equipment. So, yeah, let's look forward to Inclusive Education 2024.
All right, Melanie, many thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Tim.
And to the viewers out there, the conversation has been around inclusive education for children with disability. I've been having the Executive Director for Mukisa Humanity and Inclusion Foundation, Melanie Mataga, as we were looking deeper in understanding how we can include children with disability in conversations, in policies that are being made, in how do we welcome and appreciate these particular children into our spaces, because that is also quite important as we go forward with our aim of inclusivity. She did also mention on the 10th of December, that is just a few days from now, we shall definitely be having a dinner that is ideally the inaugural dinner that is definitely, kick-starting off conversations and, outreaches to society to include children with disability into the education system or into the broader perspective of Uganda's education system. I am Joram Paul Songo, and you've been watching UBC Good Morning Uganda Extra. Till tomorrow, and many thanks for joining us from the time we kick-started off from 9:30 with the Good Morning Uganda crew. I was with Olive, Monica Najuma, Chantal Oliver Kandinda, as well as Ruben Pima Chibirago, to give you more enlightenment from sports, entertainment, news, information, and discussions, conversations that will impact you. I should as well remind you, as we are we're into a world that is actually changing, and the like. Gender-based violence is something that we should as well be against, whether in our homes, in society, as well as in schools. So we should be preaching against gender-based violence as we welcome people into a society that is free from violence. Also, be very cautious as you're driving, whether you're heading to the village or whether you're heading back home. Thieves are quite many lately, and also the accidents that are up there. So it is always so good of us to be vigilant and cautious as well. Have yourselves a blessed day and a fruitful remainder of this particular week. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
A new dawn on Behind the Headlines with me, Timothy Nyangweso, every Wednesday live in our studios in the heart of Kampala. We have conversations that have analysis, explanation, but not every truth is fact and not every fact is truth. Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcast.